Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion right here, right now, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior and 10th Man, along with the One in G+. How you all doing?
Wonderful.
Hey.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to everybody on that beautiful plane.
Good timing. Hey, Arwin, good to have you as well.
Hello.
Hello.
We are winning.
We are winning. Shout out to Cleary. Love it. And hello to everyone in Discord. Very good to have you all.
Hi Nathan, how are you?
Very well. Thank you for being here. Any signs of Earth curvature?
Not from Barstow.
Nah.
Not from where?
Barstow.
Oh, all right. Well, not from Europe.
So Ranty released a video of Baron Finesse, presumably on his P1000 at higher quality, which is wonderful. Had a quick scan through the comments. So many people want to utilise the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator. It's unreal. Like, don't these people appreciate that things get smaller with distance, and measuring them in feet and inches or metres will not change with distance, and that is the mechanism of removing perspective from their curve calculator when they reify the edge of a sphere into the horizon. Maybe people just aren't aware of this.
So they're curve beggars.
Yeah. Reification fallacy of the Earth being a sphere, reification fallacy of the horizon into the edge of that sphere.
How could people not be aware of what you just clearly stated? When someone's driving, say, towards a mountain because they want to go on a ski vacation, the mountain looks small from the distance you first see it. And as you get closer towards that mountain, it gets bigger and bigger. I mean, how can they not see what you're saying?
Hey, Dances with Fools, did you want to add something? Because your mic's wide open. We heard your hairdryer earlier, by the way. Or vacuum. Obviously not.
Oh, excuse me about that. Hello, by the way.
It was quite comical. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Well, any signs of the axis?
No. No, just formal logical fallacies affirming the consequent. If the Earth is a sphere, we will observe axial star rotation. We observe axial star rotation, therefore the Earth is a sphere. So it's a begging the question fallacy where they force you to believe that when you travel south, you're actually travelling antipodal to yourself when you observe no such effects and there's no curvature. Nevertheless, they can beg the question they've got an axis and the Earth's a spherical ball, and then assert that the observations they see take place on their presupposed spherical ball. But beyond that, affirming the consequent, no, there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever of an axis. Just fundamentalist religious zealots who beg the question.
If there was any kind of axial rotation, even of the slightest kind, we would feel it.
Yeah, and if evolution was real, how didn't it work out for all those people?
Well, one thing for sure, their arguments are not evolving.
Haha, nailed
Like
it.
quantum erasers jokes. If evolution was real, why do we still have globetards?
Yeah.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
Absolutely not.
Supposedly, from Rumpus, asking questions about gravity makes them malformed.
What if we ask them awkward questions about the not force that they can consider a force, that force that's not a force? Awkward questions about that means we're malforming our questions. Yeah.
They can't prove mass attracts mass. There's no way you can show that. Second, now it's the bending of a space-time concept, a thought experiment, and that is so out there. And they have two positions, and they throw the first one under the bus, but then they want to bring it back when it's necessary. They are so confused, these globetards.
Any evidence the distance to the sun?
No.
Nada.
Where is it?
Where is it? It's been on a cloud at the moment. What is it? Be a more pertinent question.
Yeah, we don't know what the sun is
The light.
in the sky.
Right. A bright disk from which the daylight direction comes that we perceive is what we have named the sun.
The daylight direction doesn't come from the sun. That's like a secondary spotlight if you're talking in lighting terms. Before that disk even appears, things are lit around you.
Yeah, but one could argue it's coming from there specifically, and wherever.
Well, maybe, but
It's kind of weird though. But
well, if this,
it's just that
go on. Sorry.
the light scatters, of course. You know, even when there's cloud, there's still light, because even if the sun is not visible. But with daylight direction, it's just that the most primary beams are from that specific direction every time. That's why you see that blinding disk thing.
Go on, unicorn laser eyes.
It is a source of heat, though, right? Looks a little bit localized, like a localized source of heat. The sun, I mean.
Right.
It looks like how?
We're all describing things it does, though, aren't we?
How does something
Yes.
look like a source of heat? I thought that heat is mostly feelable.
What I mean is we're describing actions. It lights this way, it heats that way, it appears at this time, it's in this general direction, it's behind the cloud. Well, these are all actions, aren't they? What is it, though? That's the original. What the hell is it? Distance to it. Yeah, you'd need to know what it is first, how big it is, and various other things, but we don't know any of that. We move on. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
Nope. Chocolate.
Hey, Chocolate.
Hello. Morning.
Chocolate, have you heard about any cores in some spheres?
What?
Any cores self-perpetuating? Made of iron?
Cores?
Yeah.
Like a molten iron one? Nah, I don't
Yeah.
know nothing about that.
So no, Nick.
I've seen pictures in a textbook once or twice, but that's not proof of anything. So can't help you, brother. Fresh out.
How about the presupposition itself, the R value, Earth radius?
Globe hits are retarded. R value is big.
Everything is R level.
Our value is big.
If they say they have an R value, it's a mathematical number, 8 inches per mile squared, right? So we
Sort
don't
of.
see it. Well, we mean sort of.
But
Isn't it
that's
off the
only an estimation as to how to properly assume R. It's not the real thing. You know?
Hang on, I thought math was not biased, and that's their religion, math. And if they say the Earth is 24,903 miles in circumference, and they apply 8 inches per mile square to that, they get that from that R value, that number, correct? Am I wrong?
Not exactly.
Indeed.
Okay, please explain.
It's a generalization. It gives you a parabola, so it's not going to be giving you any spherical measurements. If you actually take it based on the radius, it's more severe than 8 inches per mile squared comes out to. I love pointing that out when people say 8 inches per mile squared isn't even the real maths. Yeah, yours is worse. It should show more curve if you did it based on the actual R value, but they don't know that. They're dumb. Anyway, did you want to add
Can
something,
you
Chad?
elaborate?
Just 1 second.
Yeah, and they keep
Hold
on
on, just 1
forgetting
second.
that the further they look, the more they should be rotating their head down as they look at the horizon, according to their system.
Depending on how they draw it orthographically, yes, Arwin. Did you want to add something, Chad? I saw you flashing away. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Good to have you.
Oh, okay. I was just checking.
No worries. We can just hear you clicking if you leave your mic open, that's all. So if you want to add
Oh,
something,
okay.
great.
No, I'll turn it off.
No worries. Any signs of
You-
any viable hypothesis from any
Nathan.
of the fields of astrophysics, cosmology, or what was the other one? Astronomy.
Ooh, almost got one. Almost.
No.
Almost got a viable hypothesis, eh?
Yes.
How can you almost have a viable hypothesis?
Yes. No, I thought Aries' failure was almost there, but apparently, just
Not viable.
just unovercomable.
It was a failure, though, wasn't it? You don't test the null. So when people take null results as meaning something, it doesn't. You're invalidating what you presume caused the effect. Well, what's the effect in his case?
Starlight passing through the medium of water at a specific angle. The thing was, it was a very good test, but yeah, scientific validity was it almost was there. It seemed very much like it was scientific method set up, but apparently I was incorrect with that assertion.
Well, what's his phenomena? If his phenomena is star rotation, and he's trying to claim that the Earth's rotating to cause the stars to move, is that what his claim is? Because at the end of it, he doesn't get the result that Earth moves, therefore null result. But he hasn't established the cause of star rotation now, has he? So
Yep.
How much validity do you want to give to a failed experiment? Yeah, you can observe that the stars rotate, but has he in any way got any way closer to establishing the cause of that effect? The answer is no.
Well, it kind of gets you closer as to establishing what the effect actually is.
No, it doesn't.
No, it's a
Not in the
rotating
slightest.
light thing
No, it doesn't.
instead of the Earth rotating underneath it.
He got no result when he claimed that the Earth moving is what will cause the stars to move, and therefore, when that wasn't validated, he didn't establish the cause of the rotation of the stars. So therefore, validation of the null result. But that you don't test the null. You're not testing for a failed result. You assume what causes the effect. He assumed Earth rotation, and he was wrong. That didn't cause the effect. Does that invalidate Earth's rotation? Well, no, it doesn't do that either. As much as I'd like to say it did. Oh, well, that invalidates that Earth's rotating. Well, no, it doesn't. It just establishes that the cause of the stars moving isn't Earth rotation, which is a presupposition. That's where we attack the argument, as opposed to utilising Airy's failure as some sort of proof. Now, I appreciate that lots of people do, but I'm interested in empirical scientific validity as opposed to a null result. Sorry.
Right.
But good talking point though. Bloody hell, Arwin. Well done. I wasn't expecting that.
Okay, yeah, it came up to me like half a week ago. I talked over with it in the back chat with John after we went offline a while ago. I think Monday. But yeah, it seems almost scientific, but it isn't because, as you said, you don't really establish the real phenomena and its cause. But what do you, besides just tagging it as pseudoscience, of course, what is this? Because it does reveal, well, real data.
No, it doesn't. It's a
is
null
it-
result. Let me give you a different example.
Yeah, but it does.
Just let me
It
try. Let me
establishes
try, Arwin.
which
Just let me
one
try.
is moving.
Arwin, let me just try. You come across
But
a
it
boiling
refuses
hot
it.
spring. So your phenomena is boiling hot spring. And then you presume the cause is acid. So you go away and you go, right, we're presupposing or we're assuming that the cause of the boiling water is the acid. You add the acid and, like Aries, you get a null result. It doesn't cause the effect. Well, would you say that suddenly you're closer to finding out what the cause of that boiling hot spring is, why the water boils?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, that's
But
what
it
happened to
will
Airy. You
give
got a null...
better backdrop
Arwin,
information
I'm nearly...
as to a
Arwin.
framework.
Oh, fucking hell, Arwin. So that's the same exact situation Aries found himself in, though, didn't he? Didn't come anywhere closer to finding the cause. He just got a null result. Well, there's infinite numbers of wrong answers. So, yeah, it doesn't really help you get closer to the actual cause of why those stars are moving. Or the water boiling in my example.
I don't know. Why does it still give such? I don't know.
I think
Result.
the problem
Why
is
are
he
the
could have
results
tested
so
it.
worthy?
He could have tested it another way and gotten another null result, and in a different had he tested it in a different way. Yeah,
Right.
there's plenty of null results he could have gotten.
Yeah, you don't directly test the null. You're assuming a cause, varying and manipulating it, and then if you validate what you assumed caused the effect, you have proven your hypothesis. Now, if you vary it and you don't, then you don't validate your hypothesis. You validate the null. You invalidate your hypothesis. It's just that simple. That's the level of empiricism science offers. It proves or disproves your hypothesis. Well, a disproven hypothesis, you're back to square one.
Right. Yeah.
Can I add on top of the last housekeeping question? If the Earth was actually really a ball, why do we get more and more flat earthers every day? And why are the bulkheads in panic mode? Why are Brenda and Rumpus keep coming back to the show? If it's so certain and clear that Earth is a ball, why do they have to put stupid pseudoscientists on talk shows every night and explain about bullshit theories of made up human concepts? Why are they in despair if Earth is actually a ball?
Because they've been
If they have that
brainwashed.
science.
Because they've been brainwashed into that belief it's not actually a ball. And when it's demonstrably not a ball, they get very angry because they've been brainwashed into belief that it is. That's frustrating for somebody with a religious belief in something that isn't real, like a ball Earth.
Right.
Yeah, they're literally on talk shows celebrating.
And maybe in a way you can also compare it to, well, to the ballers. It might be kind of like an exciting fantasy about, oh, we're fighting the retreat to the Middle Ages, so it's important. Science is important again, to fight for it. So maybe as in the early days to flat earthers, it was like, oh, let's go to the NASA or ISS live stream channel and drop flat earth bomb, get banned, whatever. Well, maybe to the ballers it is kind of the same thing. It's it's just a little creepier, I guess, because they're also just ignoring things every time.
Do you have something to present, Anthony?
I do.
Do you want me to stick you up, or do you want me to round out the last couple of housekeeping questions?
Just round about and come back to me when you're ready.
Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon for all the fundamentalist religious zealots who believe the sky is a vacuum? Gas
No.
without a container. Anybody?
No.
Absolutely not. Not on Discord.
What is what is roughly the percentile division between Earth's atmosphere and its gas pressure and this supposed confines of the expanding outer space universe and its relative gas pressure, what's the differential between the two?
Massive.
Very big.
Well, put it this way: if the tanker implodes on MythBusters with like, I think it was about something like 8 or 10% of the differential that we have space to Earth, and that tanker imploded as a result of that, then that gives you a scale for the differential, how much pressure is pushing down on the vacuum of space on a thermodynamically open system. It's colossal. I think what it is, Arwin, the ballers think that, you know, the 14.7 psi. They think that the 13.7 psi that's above it is stopping the 14.7 from pushing upwards, right? And they think that the 12.7 psi is stopping the 13.7 from pushing upwards. And they think that the 11.7 is stopping the 12.7 psi pushing upwards. They don't realize that the atmosphere is not actually able to do that. All of the atmosphere is all pushing out in all directions against the surface of the Earth, because that's the containment it's bouncing off to give us the pressure we're breathing. So all of this pushing,
So what would be pushing what would be pushing the point 1 infinity 0 1?
Yeah, not
at the top.
Well, everything's behind it's pushing it forward, trying to get it out into space, because that's what pressure does. But they think that it's
Alright.
the top layer, like the skin of the banana.
Mr. Arwin,
I don't think they understand entropy and how gas pressure distributes itself within a container of any sort. They just think it can distribute however it likes. Stick to something, stay open in another space.
Very well said,
Mr. Arwin. Hello?
Go ahead, Dances. But well said, Arwin. Yes. Hey, Ranty. Go ahead, Dances.
The answer is 100 million billion times thinner. So the gas in 10 to the minus 17 torr is 100 million billion times thinner than the gas at the surface, near the surface of the ocean.
That is a huge differential, isn't it?
Wow.
But the differential is inconsequential.
It's
You
negligible.
can't have a gas.
But I also wanted to compare the volume
Shut
of
up, shut
the gas pressure on the
Precisely.
Earth with the
Hold on.
volume of outer
Shall we
space
hear
and
Arwin?
its pressure.
You said that again, Arwin.
Well, what I originally asked is not just the pressure differential between the pressure on the Earth's surface and the presupposed deep space, but also the volume comparison of where
Precisely.
this pressure on the Earth's surface is supposed to be compared to the pressure in the outer space and its volume, the differential between those two.
Right. Exactly. The differential wouldn't be achieved if you didn't have a container to begin with. So without the container, there can be no gas pressure gradient. However, as Arwin correctly points out, the issue is the volume. Gas will expand in all directions to fill the available volume. Now, obviously, if you're in a container to begin with, you can have a kettle boiling, and the gas higher up will be less than the gas lower down. It's being created at ground level with the kettle. So if you put your finger over the spout, it'll get burnt. A metre above it, it won't. A mile above it, it's going to be virtually non-existent. That's why we have the dissipation of gases. But that would need a container to begin with, because overall, the thing you actually want to pay the most attention to is the volume, the available volume for the gas to fill. Now, they're claiming there's an available volume for the gas to fill, but it isn't filling it. Violation of a natural law. So no, it's not necessarily about the gradient, which you'd need a container for, delta X. First, you must have a gas pressure by having a container to then form a gas pressure gradient. However, the volume of that containment dictates how much gas pressure will be dispersed through that gradient. If the volume is outer space, you wouldn't get an opportunity to build up any sort of gradient. The gas would simply fill the available volume. And how much volume? Well, vast amounts of it. Vast amounts of space, they claim, the gas isn't filling.
And all of that because we have people like Brenda who think clocks on walls hold the gas. with their stupid space-time concepts.
Pretty sure that concludes housekeeping. Did you want me to put you on screen, Anthony?
Yeah. Let me know when it's on.
Okay, you're on screen.
Okay, so I've been having a back and forth with this guy called Chris Hardy. He claims to be an engineer in Alabama, Birmingham, USA, not Birmingham, England. And, you know, he looks like a normal kind of guy. But I cited the getting a bit of feedback from someone.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from. Pop yourselves on mute if you're not talking, please.
I cited the 10 or 12 citations that gravity is not a force to see how he would respond. And I don't even think he's watched the video. He might have done, but I want to show some of his I want to show his response. And I've lost it now. I should have had this ready. I did have it ready a minute ago. I've had to stop speaking to him because he where is it gone? Here we go. This is it. I had to stop speaking to him because he said that all of my citations think gravity is a force. So I asked him to demonstrate. So he gave me some counters back to the claim that gravity is not a force. So he cited this guy, Eric Verlinder, and Eric Verlinder is the guy that says that we've known for a long time that gravity is not a force. It's time to start shouting it. And this is what he's come back with. He says, quote, "Let us consider the force that acts on a particle of mass, m. In a general relativistic setting, force is less clearly defined since it can be transformed away by a general coordinate transformation." Now, this is supposed to be a rebuttal to my claim that he says that gravity is not a force. So he cited this phrase, and I want you to focus on the bit where it says, since it can be transformed away by a general coordinate transformation. So he's contrasting here. He's not comparing. He's not saying he agrees with Newton. He's saying he's explaining why general relativity can be transformed away from Newtonian by a general coordinate transformation, right?
Wait. so he's Einsteining it out of the way.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a good one that you caught that.
So what I've done is I've copied the link that he's the citation, and I found the paper that this was cited from. So as you can see, I've got it highlighted. This is where he's got it from, and in the context in which which Verlinder is talking in this particular paper. If I go back to the very beginning, on the origin of gravity and the laws of Newton by Eric Verlinder in 2010, right? So if I go back to where the citation is, you can see the citation. And in this context, he's talking about the law of inertia and the equivalence principle in relation to redshift, right? Now, this context is superseded by the next paragraph. So in the next paragraph, he finishes off with the derivation of Einstein's equations. But the next paragraph is the conclusion of the whole paper. Ignore 5.3. Here we go. Conclusion and discussion. Now, bear in mind, he's citing this against the idea that Verlinder thinks that gravity's gone. He's claiming this as a supporting citation for Verlinder actually thinking that gravity is a force. The conclusion of the paper that he's cited from has the conclusion heading, "The end of gravity as a fundamental force." I'll read the first paragraph. It says, Gravity has many hints of being an emergent phenomenon, yet up to this day, it is still seen as a fundamental force. And everybody in this conversation still thinks that gravity is a fundamental force. We get it all the time. Everybody thinks of it as a fundamental force. Regardless of its actual status, it's thought of as a fundamental force. That doesn't mean it is. It's like when Musa says, gravity is not really a force, but you can think of it as a force. That's what's happening here. But then he goes on to say, the similarities with other known emergent phenomena such as thermodynamics and hydrodynamics have mostly been regarded as just suggestive analogies. This is the most important bit. It is time we not only notice the analogy and talk of the similarity, but finally do away with gravity as a fundamental force. He's not saying that gravity is a force. He's saying that we should do away with it. Now, bear in mind that in the context of what this is being cited back to me, this is being cited back to me as a supporting assertion for the claim that Eric Verlinder thinks that gravity is a force. and it's in this paper somewhere. I've lost it temporarily, but this is being cited by this guy called Chris Hardy, who's an engineer who works in Birmingham, Alabama, and he thinks that this context is supporting the assertion that gravity is a force. It clearly is not. The conclusion of the paper for which he cites from clearly says we should be moving away from gravity because it's time to finally do away with gravity as a fundamental force. Nobody in current science thinks that gravity is a force, but for some reason, everybody on our conversation thinks of gravity as a force, but nobody does in current science. So I'm going to echo these words back to Chris. It's time that we not only notice the analogy and talk of the similarity, but finally do away with gravity as a fundamental force, because it's not a force, Chris. Whatever gravity is, it's an observed phenomena, the way Einstein describes it. It's not a cause, it's the effect that we perceive. It's a phenomena that we think we're looking at. And there's a good reason why we've never had an independent variable, because the phenomena that we observe isn't gravity. It's entropic by nature. And I agree with the conclusions of this paper, but it's not a force as for the center of mass. There is a force involved, and we can manipulate that force and cause an effect. But you guys still infer gravity as a force. Well, it's time we finally do away with gravity as a fundamental force. And hopefully, Chris, if you're watching this, Chris Hardy, I'm hoping that you'll acknowledge that you've cited incorrectly a phrase that does not support your assertion, but fundamentally affirms mine. I'm done.
Hey, Adam, good to have you.
Anthony, don't be done. Read those next two paragraphs. That's brilliant, mate.
In what, the paper?
Yeah, and will you send the paper to me and John D, please?
Yes.
This is exactly what we've been discussing.
It says, of course, Einstein's geometric description of gravity is beautiful and in a certain way compelling. Geometry appeals to the visual parts of our mind and is amazingly powerful in summarizing many aspects of a physical problem. Presumably, this explains why we, as a community, have been so reluctant to give up the geometric formulation of gravity as being fundamental. But it is inevitable that we do so. If gravity is emergent, so is space-time geometry. Einstein tied these two concepts together, and both have to be given up if we want to understand one or the other at a more fundamental level. The results of this paper suggest gravity arises as an entropic force, and I agree with him. Once space and time themselves has emerged, if the gravity and space-time can indeed be explained as emergent phenomena, this should have important implications for many areas in which gravity plays a central role. It would be especially interesting to investigate the consequences for cosmology. For instance, the way redshifts arise from entropy gradients that could lead to many new insights. Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, that's posh for its load of bollocks, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes it plain. It says these two concepts. Anybody in denial? Fifth line down, I believe. I'll just read that again. Einstein tied these two concepts together.
Yeah. What that means is, when he says these two concepts, let's go with the answer being 4. Newton calculated 4 with 2 plus 2. Einstein said, nah, I agree with 4, but it's actually 1 plus 3. And there are other interpretations or theories behind gravity, right? And they say things like, well, it's 2.5 plus 1.5, and that gives you 4. The fact that Einstein's maths and Newtonian maths gives you the answer 4 simply means that they're matching the observed phenomena. But the calculation for how you get to that phenomena is the bit where the interpretation comes into it. And so long as the maths equals 4 on both occasions, then you are left with, they both match each other's observations and therefore they're credible. But that doesn't change the fact that maths is not causative by nature. What's causative is giving something a bit of a manipulation, a wiggle. So calculating something and getting the right answer doesn't have any credibility whatsoever to establishing whether or not things fall to the ground because of a force. You need scientific experiment for that, because that's the only thing that matters. Calculating it is literally irrelevant. It's not part of scientific method for a good reason.
Brilliant.
May I have one?
Just do a quick shout out to Alicia Champagne. Nathan, can you give examples of natural laws You mentioned some before, like something hot becoming cold and high pressure to low pressure. Okay, it's the second law. Any more? Question mark. First law of thermodynamics: energy cannot be created or destroyed. So if you've got a 1 square meter box and it's got, let's call it, 1 million particles of gas inside it, the amount of collisions with the container will be vastly more than if you've got 1 million square meter box, but the total energy that those however many number of gas particles I just said a moment ago have got doesn't change regardless of the size of the container that they're in. So the energy doesn't change. The same applies when you're describing entropy. Entropy increase is the dispersion of the energy. So that's the second law of thermodynamics. So when you're talking about hot to cold, it's the dispersion of that energy into that system. But the amount of energy isn't changing, it remains constant. But the dispersion, the entropy increase, would be the description of your example that you've given, Alicia, which is high pressure to low pressure or hot to cold. Other laws you just want to make random, presumably something that's directly related to what we're talking about. So maybe Boyle's law might be a good example. So the pressure of a given gas, or in this example a gas, is proportional to the volume of its actual containment. So if you've got, like in my example earlier, a 1 square meter box versus 1 million square meter box with the same number of particles of gas in it, the pressure, the amount of collisions with the walls of the container, is going to be higher in a smaller box. And that's directly proportional or inversely proportional. So if you increase the size of the box, you're going to have less collisions with the walls of the container. So that would be Boyle's law. So these are things that hold true always. Establishing the cause of them is a totally different affair, though. So you're not going to ever say the reason you have less, the cause of less collisions on a bigger container is. That's kind of nonsensical and self-explanatory within the law. So same with things flowing from high pressure to low pressure or hot to cold. To establish the cause is kind of, it's kind of a ridiculous notion. It is what it is. That's why it's described as a natural law. Hope that helps, Alicia. Thanks for the super chat. Any other pertinent laws anyone wants to add? Sorry, go ahead.
Gravity. The gravity formula from Newton is referring the center of mass affecting another center of mass. So imagine a two stain or whatever iron big plates. If you put two big plates near each other, the center of mass of some huge plate, like 5 meters to 5 meters of iron or steel or whatever, the center of mass is in the middle, of course. And if you put those near together, you should easily measure the gravity if it's measurable, or any way the formula works from the center of the mass to the center of the mass according to the Newton formula, which makes no sense, of course. But I've been wondering, two big metal slates, or what they are called in English, and put those two together so that each object center of the mass is very close, almost touching another center of the mass, so that the force should be huge there if the formula is right.
Yeah, it isn't.
Yeah,
we don't use
if gravity
Newtonian.
existed, right?
Well, we don't even. That's not even the current gravity. So no, we're not using Newtonian, incorrectly labelled, more accurately labelled Cavendish, Reverend John Michel gravity.
I know, but
out of date. That's not what we use. That's not the current bullshit.
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out when talk, because it came in a talk when we talked with these globe believers about this Newtonian mass center taking attraction to another mass center. It doesn't make any sense, and it's not measurable.
Yeah, so the response is no. Gravity is not a force, and that idea was outdated about 100 years ago by Einstein with his conceptual bending of space-time. So no, gravity is not a force.
Which makes no sense as well. Thank you.
That would be my reply. But lots of people need a force for their religious belief, and therefore they go back to this 100-year out-of-date force. But it's not a force.
Yeah, and even Newton himself thought that any man with any competent factor should not think of this thing as a force. Said it. The man said it himself.
Chocolate, I have to correct you a bit on that.
Go for it.
He meant for the effect of gravity through a vacuum, that it's just bullshit. Because he inferred that if you have space, there must be a medium between the planets. And that's what he referred to as bullshit. So it cannot be force acting through vacuum. He wanted to say that you need a medium for this effect to happen. And he referred to space as bullshit, made up story. Impossible.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's bullshit. And he said it.
No, but he didn't say it about gravity. He said the effect of gravity through vacuum, not the gravity itself.
All right.
I've translated the quote from English to Bulgarian, so I know it very well.
No, that's cool.
Hey, when did Einstein live? I mean, Newton live? Was it 1600s?
Jesus, don't know.
Well, I just want to know how he knew
Who?
space was a vacuum.
Well, no, he opposed the view that space is a vacuum.
Well, how does he know it wasn't?
You tell me.
I don't know how he didn't know, but we know, because you can't have gas pressure without a container, and we definitely have gas pressure, and the assertion that there's a massive available volume that the gas isn't dispersing into is preposterous. That's how we know. I don't know how he did or didn't know.
Well, that's why I'm trying to trace down this reference attributed to Newton. Because if what Chocolate said, and we saw already, Newton himself didn't call gravity a force. And then someone's now attributing, well, he didn't mean that. He meant there's no vacuum. It's like, well, did he say that, or is someone saying he said that?
Well, Newton made it plain that he didn't want gravity being ascribed to him. That's why we call it Reverend John Michel Cavendish gravity as opposed to Newtonian gravity, just to respect his wishes. He didn't want that nonsense attributed to his name.
Correct. But now this thing that the one said, where's the source for that Newton said that?
Yes.
Yeah, because when I read the quote, he was talking about gravity. He didn't say anything. I mean, maybe you have a different version of it than I do, but in the English version that I read, he said gravity, and that it should be innate and essential to matter and all that. So that
Yeah,
I mean, he did mention the vacuum, so that one body may act at upon another at a distance through a vacuum, right?
exactly that. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, but he was talking about the gravity.
Yeah, but the lack of medium in space cannot be able to transmute the gravity, to transport the force of it. That's what he meant.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is, dead people can't come back and tell us what they said or didn't say. Someone's saying he said that. Now, where's the source that he
I've got
actually
it,
said that?
Ken.
Oh, good.
Okay. It is inconceivable that innate brute matter should, without the mediation of something else which is not material, operate upon and affect other matter without mutual contact, as it must if gravitation is the sense of Epicurus be essential and inherent in it. And this is one reason why I desired you would not ascribe innate gravity to me, that gravity should be innate, inherent, and essential to matter, so that one body may act upon another at a distance through a vacuum without the mediation of anything else by and through which their action or force may be conveyed from one to another, is to me so great an absurdity that I believe no man who has in philosophical matters any competent faculty of thinking can ever fall into it. Gravity must be caused by an agent, according to certain laws, but whether this agent be material or immaterial is a question I have left to the conscience of my readers.
Isaac
Beautiful.
Newton.
I think that's the one Chocolate was referencing.
That's Isaac
Yeah.
Newton. Those are
It's
Isaac
exactly the
Newton.
one.
Those are Isaac Newton himself's words. To him, such an absurd notion that any man with reasonable thoughts in regards to logic or philosophy would definitely not see this as being rational. Absurd, in fact, by his own words. So when people say Newtonian gravity, no, he absolutely made it plain. He did not want this subscribed to him. It is, probably because he objected to it. That's how they deal out their nonsense. Little snigger and, oh right, you don't think it's real. All right, well ascribe it to you then if you're specifically saying don't ascribe it to me. No, Reverend John Michel Cavendish gravity is what he's describing and decrying in that very succinct statement he makes. To him it's so absurd that no rational man could ever consider it being real. Who's got that beepy beeps going on? Beepy beeps. Just going to read out this second super chat from Aidan Burge. I feel like donating to the show. Do you still need computer parts to run the best daily show on YouTube? Are you still looking for a new hard drive? Well, no. I'm very grateful that I've got quite loyal patronage. So thank you very much to all my patrons. They're the guys that actually keep the show running smoothly. So I tend to take my Patreon's contributions and put them towards maintenance and equipment. So most recently, the hard drive, my main hard drive, failed. And thank you to the people on Patreon. The credit card that fell through the door a couple of days ago can be paid because I've got Patreons that do support me in that way. So rather than hesitating or waiting for it to actually die and the show not coming out, I immediately replaced it, sent it to the computer shop, had it changed within a day. They transferred all the data, and that was all paid for by my Patreons. So I'm very, very grateful for your super chat. Thank you very much indeed. And yeah, I really do appreciate your support. But yeah, the show runs as smoothly as it does because I've made it plain when I started my Patreon page that I want that money specifically to go to keeping the show running as it does. So that's precisely what I do spend all of that money on. I try and keep them updated. I don't think I did a video for the Patreons about the hard drive, but I mentioned it a lot on the show. But yeah, thank you very much for your support. Also, 5 Angels, thank you very much. This super chat is for all the righteous ballers here to save us, lol. Thank you very much for the super chat.
Hey, Nathan.
Hello. Totally agree.
We couldn't hear him speaking then, Nathan.
Neither could I.
Nathan, I've got an update from Danny Faulkner on why he thinks that I'm wrong with the gas pressure point. Do you want to screen share?
Yeah, sure.
So I've shown him the video where we demonstrate what happens when you put gas pressure next to a vacuum and you open the valve. In other words, remove the barrier. And we all know it immediately bursts into the vacuum and pop goes the model was the video on my channel. But listen to what he said in response. He said, but there is no container between Earth's surface at 120,000 feet above us. Therefore, if what you are claiming about the air around us is true, then the air at ground ought to be sucked up into the vacuum at 120,000 feet. The fact that it doesn't ought to tell you that there is something very wrong with what you are claiming.
Stop.
Now I'm like,
hold on. That's circular reasoning. That's pointing at the sky and saying, because I believe the sky is a vacuum, and it's not dispersing into my fundamentalist religious belief in a sky vacuum, well, then there's something very wrong with what you're claiming. No.
Yeah.
His first statement is our claim. Again, it's somebody else that's decided to reassert our own statement back to us like that's some sort of defence. Yeah, that's correct. We wouldn't have any gas pressure, Danny Faulkner. If the sky was a vacuum, correct. All of the gas we're breathing here at ground level would fuck off into the sky vacuum, as you correctly assert. The fact that you believe it's a sky vacuum isn't a defence. That's circular reasoning. For the love of God.
It's also denying the consequence as well, because like I've said to him here, I said exactly. He gets it, right? He gets it. He says, therefore, if what I'm claiming about the air around us is true, then the air on the ground ought to be sucked up to the vacuum at 220,000 feet. I said, exactly. But that doesn't happen real world, does it? Let's be clear, this is not my claim. This is how gas pressure is caused. And vacuums don't technically suck, but I take your point and I agree with you. I totally agree with you. It conflicts 100% with reality, doesn't it? So well done. Why doesn't this happen real world? So he's flipping it around on
There
me.
isn't a fucking vacuum at 100. Where's this vacuum at 120,000 feet that he's talking about? There's lower pressure, but there's no vacuum been confirmed at 120,000 feet. So it's a straw man in itself in the next.
Well, he basically realizes that because it doesn't happen real world, he thinks that there's something wrong with my claim. But what he doesn't consider is the possibility that he might have it wrong. Let me just try and address this bit here. He said, how many times must we point this out to you before you begin to understand? This is why I choose not to engage with you, because you fail to see this very obvious problem with what you are claiming. You discomprehend much of the world around you. Until you realize that, I can't help you, and it's fruitless to engage in a discussion with you. And I said, discomprehend is not a word. I believe that the word you're looking for is miscomprehend. Tell me, why is it not your model that's wrong? I demonstrate what happens real world and define the cause to be the container and define the cause to be a container. But you translate that into me being wrong rather than your model. Please explain how the definition and the demonstration is wrong, but your model is right. Because it's the definition of gas pressure requires containment for it to have it in the first place. And we can demonstrate gas pressure next to a vacuum, literally one bursts into the other. But for some reason, he doesn't compute that. And he thinks that my model's wrong because real world, it's contained. And it's like, dude, you've just demonstrated that you realize that this can't happen real world. You debunk your own model by doing that.
No. Hold on. Just 1 second. Just 1 second, Paul. No. Go scroll back up to his first statement. He's using circular reasoning. Because he believes the sky is a vacuum, it means that it couldn't possibly disperse into it, and your assertion is incorrect. Because the sky is a vacuum in his fundy belief. Textbook circular reasoning.
Tony, the second paragraph when he says, how many times must we point this out to you before you begin to understand? How many times have we heard that?
Hold on, Paul. Go ahead, Ranty. Just finish off your statement, then go ahead.
Just how many times do they say this to us that we don't understand?
We do understand. But what he's not realizing is if he thinks
hold on, Anthony. Just go ahead, Paul.
Well, the Globers always do this. They do a bait and switch on you. They consider differential pressure a vacuum. But that's the bait and switch they do on us. When we say vacuum, I mean there's no substance up there. But when they say it, they mean there's a differential pressure. That's why when you talk to Zanuck, you talk to anybody, like a wing on an airplane, above the wing is a vacuum, below the wing is higher pressure, even though there's the same amount of substance above the wing and below the wing. Do you understand? So they do a bait and switch on it. They need to define vacuum, and they need to define differential pressure.
But when they do that, to have that differential, you must first have gas pressure. And without the container, there can be no pressure. So his assertion is essentially circular reasoning because he believes the sky is a vacuum. So bait and switch, no, it doesn't address the question. The question is, how can you have gas pressure without a container?
And it's crazy because he says the fact that it doesn't fill the vacuum is why Anthony is wrong.
Perfect.
Are you kidding, bro?
Hold on. Go ahead, Chocolate. Go ahead. Hold on, Paul. Go ahead, Chocolate. Say that again.
No, he points. Anthony, scroll up real quick. How he points out, the fact that it isn't ought to tell you that there's something very wrong with what you are claiming.
Precisely.
Not his model, with Anthony's claim.
So because
our claim.
Because he believes the sky is a vacuum, the fact that it isn't filling the vacuum clearly means your claim is wrong. No. Simply because it's not filling the vacuum means there isn't a vacuum. But you believe there's one, therefore there must be something awry here. No, just your fundamentalist belief that defies a law of nature. Ergo, the sky is not a vacuum. Not the sky is a vacuum, but there's something very wrong with the law of nature because the bloody gas isn't filling it, you moron. That's your circular reasoning. This guy is a complete clown. The fact that it isn't What, the fact that it isn't filling a vacuum as it absolutely should? It would fill the available volume. The gas would fill the space. Yeah, that's precisely what it would do. Right, I'm just going to shout out a few...
I addressed that when I've quoted him as literally saying that the fact that it isn't ought to tell you that there is something very wrong with what you are claiming. No, I have demonstrated that my claim is spot on. That is what happens. It's the other way around, Danny. Because this doesn't happen in real life means that your model is wrong.
Yeah, but you just don't understand.
And the way he points it out when he says the fact that it isn't, right? That means that he understands that it would if it was a vacuum.
Correct.
And he just needs to prove.
Chocolate's got it spot on.
Exactly, chocolate has got it spot on, and that's precisely why he needs to demonstrate what he is assuming. The fact that it isn't, the fact that the gas isn't filling the available volume, Dr. Daniel Faulkner. Well, no, you'd need to demonstrate that could happen. In other words, you'd need to demonstrate that you could have gas pressure without a container, rather than saying that your fundamentalist religious sky vacuum belief hasn't got gas dispersing into it simply because you believe the sky is a vacuum. Textbook circular reasoning. You would need to demonstrate that gas would not fill the available volume, as you assert happens with your fundamentalist sky vacuum belief.
I honestly don't know how ballers can not see this. They've got to be turning a Nelson's eye to think that there's any credible argument here. It's obvious that this is wrong.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Hello?
Hey, Brian. Good to have you.
Hey, how are you doing? I don't know if I'm coming through okay on these headphones.
Yeah, bit loud. If you back off your mic. Same goes for Anthony. You're causing a load of plosives. But just while you both back off your mics, I'm going to do a couple of shout-outs. So, shout-out to Leonardo Gonzalez, who says, to make sure I don't go a day without the Flat Earth debate. So thank you very much for your support. Really appreciate it, Leonardo Gonzalez. Also, Awaken Narrative, thank you very much for your super chat. You can't have flucking gas pressure without a container. Absolutely spot on. You're right. You can't have gas pressure without a container. That would defy natural law. Also, shout out to Dave Rakia Gafford. See if I can scroll up. He's the last super chatter. I'm under pressure to give truth. I must be contained by the truth of Jesus Christ, Saviour. Thank you very much indeed for your super chat and all the other super chatters. But yeah, thank you, David Rakia Gafford. Go ahead, Brian. Good show yesterday, by the way. And to you, Ranty.
Do you guys see the definition I have on screen?
Yeah, I'll stick it up.
Cheers, Nath.
You're on, Paul.
Could I just say something there before Paul just as he's presenting it?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's that? I'm just saying. I think. See, this is.
Sorry. 1 second, Paul. I just want one line. That's it. That's all I'm saying. This thing about the vacuum, 120,000 feet up. It has to be minus Tor value. It has to be that low to be a vacuum. If it's not minus Tor value, it's not a vacuum. So they'd have to prove minus Tor value. Thank you.
Okay.
You're on screen. Paul, go ahead.
Speak now, I guess.
Yeah, you're on. You're on.
I
screen.
want to show this is like I pulled this up off Britannica and I typed.
Nobody interrupted you.
Vacuum and physics. We focus on this first part of the definition. Can you hear me? Am I breaking up?
No, you're perfect.
Can you guys? Oh, okay. Okay, I just don't know. It seemed like my computer might be running slow. We focus on this first part of the definition here. Vacuum, space in which there is no matter. They focus on the second part. This is what I will keep saying this. They focus on this part. But this is the important part right here. The vacuum of space is no matter. If there's nothing up there, then the gas would fill the space. But if there's any substance up there, it's going to prevent anything from exploding into it. But they equate differential pressure, this low pressure system, as a vacuum. That's where we're talking. We're talking here. They're talking here. You see that?
Yeah,
that's not pointing out a differential. The second part isn't pointing out a differential pressure system. It's pointing out a concentration, a molecular concentration that's so low that in effect even though you may be getting a collision, in effect, it doesn't add anything to a pressure dynamic system. It's not generating that process up there. But it's not saying there's a gradient. It's saying there's one specific or variable construct that are just random, that there may be molecules. That's all it's saying. But it's so low that even if there were the odd molecule, they don't actually affect any process.
Well, and see, they're equating when they say it's when they say it's it's like less than 1 psi up at 100,000 feet. They're saying this is what's going on in this last part. That's what they're saying.
Well, 1 psi would affect, wouldn't it? I mean,
I'm just saying this is where the argument's lying. Right. I mean, I don't deny that it wouldn't. Right. You're still getting pressure. You still have pressure. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying this is where what they're saying, though. And I've been trying to tell the ballers every time I talk to them, prove to me that there's less stuff up there. Because even under gas law, you can have the same amount of stuff, same moles of a substance, and have less pressure. So it's behooving on them to show that there's less stuff up there. That's what I've been trying to push for a while. And of course, Lily decides to jump in.
No worries. I'm going to do a few shout-outs and then round out this live show. So, shameless plug. QE's presentation on materialism is absolutely mind-blowing. If you can find it on QE's channel, be here or be sphere. So, thank you very much for the plug, Retro Bill, and thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Aidan says, check your PayPal. Aidan sent me $100 on PayPal while the show was running. Thank you very much for your support. Really, really appreciate it. Also, the flatearthchannel.com. If I can find it, just scroll past it, bear with me a second. Can you set me to FE on Discord? Yeah, I'll have a word with Betty, and I'm sure she'll set you. Yeah, by default, people come in as globe heads unless approved otherwise. So yeah, you'll be set, I'm sure. Hopefully Betty will get the message. But with that, I'll say if you're watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this on the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream, then this is where we bid you farewell. A massive, huge, enormous thank you. Oh, someone else has just smashed the super chat, so I'll just read down that last super chat. Thank you very much to Lightwave, FE Logic. I understand a few years ago, but being able to communicate it back to Globers is why I'm here to learn. Valuable beyond words. Thank you. Oh wow, thank you very much for the very, very complimentary super chat, Lightwave. Really appreciate your support. But yeah, once again, stay tuned if you're watching on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream. Check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. A massive thank you to all of today's Discord and G+ panels for making this live show possible. I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!